fantasy football fallout, defense, and special teams. What happened in week 2? How does that pertain to what will happen in week 3? Who are the waiver wire acquisitions for you? And by the way, if all you care about is waiver wire, click the timestamp below. It will take you right there. But what I like to do is run through ESPN's top 10 projected, who actually scored in the top 10, especially with defense. There's always so much interesting variance to see who finished in the top 10 and why that happened. Then we're going to give away some awards. I have a Kicked in the Nuts award a week for defense. I'm sure somebody got you as well. Were you playing that person who started a team defense and they get them like 35 points? That always happens to me. If they got you as well, comment below. I always like hearing those stories. And then I have an I'm watching you for defense and special teams. So one of each award. Please, everybody, also please like, comment, subscribe. We thrive on that stuff. Literally, it means so much to us if you can subscribe and comment. That really helps us grow as a channel. We would appreciate it. Also, you can follow me on Twitter. There's a link in the show notes below. Now, let's talk about ESPN's projected top 10 on defense in order. Buffalo, San Francisco, Arizona, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Seattle, Tampa Bay, Kansas City, Baltimore. Who actually scored in the top 10? By the way, here's something before I read the top 10. Here's something I'm shocked by. San Francisco, they gave up 13 points. They did not finish in the top 10 in defense and special teams, playing that Jets team without Le'Veon Bell and without Jamison Crowder, and with Herndon getting them nothing. That's wild. So we had a lot of good defensive scoring teams at this point. When you get those sacks and turnovers, man, that really boosts your defense and special teams. But let's talk about who did score. If you're seeing this graphic, the team names written out in white means that ESPN got this correct. So they hit 4 out of the 10 so far. Baltimore, number 1. Indianapolis, number 2 against Minnesota. Man, they really throttled. Kirk Cousins had an awful, maybe the worst game of his career. That was bad. Pittsburgh, number 3. Tampa Bay, number 4. Green Bay, number 5. Green Bay's defense looks really good. I know they gave up some points late in the game to Minnesota they were playing prevent. They really kind of stuck strong, although they still gave up 21 points. But Detroit, and Matt Stafford, they're all right. But they can sack the quarterback and they can produce turnovers. So pay attention to them, everybody. Chicago, number 6, they're back, man, as a defense. They're not as good as they were 2 years ago, but they're back as a top 10 defense. Arizona, they're playing Washington. Washington, might have I know we have Washington fans on here, but I think Dwayne Haskins might be the worst starting quarterback in the league. He's raw. I'm not saying he can't be good, but he's just not good right now. Arizona, then you got the New York Giants, and you got the LA Rams at number 9, and New England snuck in at number 10 in spite of giving up 35 points. They had that pick 6. That always helps. So let me give you the award in the week, the team, the unit that really got me. And it got me. I've been doing these segments, so this is a recurring theme for my live stream here. They got me because they couldn't help me cover the freaking spread. You broke my heart. You broke my balls. The Buffalo Bills team defense. Now, Josh Allen, I've been saying all offseason, if he can be a 60% passer, if he can take that next step, this Buffalo Bills team could be like last year's Ravens. I'm talking like 12-4, 13-3, even 14-2, although it's going to be tough now that we know how good the Patriots are. But yeah, man, Buffalo, I thought they were going to throttle the Miami Dolphins, but credit Miami Dolphins and credit Ryan Tannehill, man. Sometimes, 6 times a year, he gets the juice, man. He gets the juice, and he scores some points. Top 10 fantasy quarterback this week. Go figure, against a really, really good Buffalo Bills defense. But no shade at Buffalo, man. They're a good defensive unit. Divisional matchup. The coaching staff knows them very well. It happens from time to time, but it's not like you're going to be selling on Buffalo. But I'm sure if you were starting them, you probably thought you were going to get a lot of points in your lineup this week. If you're playing daily fantasy, that looked like a good one, along with the San Francisco 49ers and New York Jets. Neither one of them scored in the top 10. You got to be kidding me. Now, I'm watching you award, a unit I'm paying very special attention to at this point. I've watched both games of the NFL season. The Tampa Bay Bucks, they're for real. We knew coming into the season they could stop the run. My big question was, well, look, I know they can stop the run. I know that their pass rush is very talented and they can stack the quarterback. But my problem was they weren't doing enough in the secondary for me to think of them any other than a volatile week-to-week daily fantasy play. Well, the addition of Antoine Winfield Jr. in their secondary has really improved the secondary play, in my opinion. They have multiple levels of defense. I don't think that they're fully there, but Todd Bowles is an excellent defensive coach. That defensive line we already talked about. I think the secondary is improved. Carolina is not a bad passing team, and they played New Orleans in the first week of the season. They're a very, very good defense and special teams unit, which brings me to my waiver wire selections. Number one, and I'm actually including the opponents in this one as well because that's so important for daily fantasy and fantasy sports and all that. But Tampa Bay plays Denver. Now, Drew Lock, their starting quarterback, went out with a shoulder injury. Is he going to be back or not? As of the time of this recording, I don't know. Driscoll could be the quarterback, who actually probably at this point might give a defense like Tampa Bay a little bit more fits than Drew Lock. I don't know. It's a coin flip for me. Drew Lock obviously is I think, an ascending talent. But at this point, I don't know how much you're losing with the backup just because Drew Lock is a little bit green, right? He's only in start number, I guess this would be start number 8 for him. So there's not a big book on him yet. But Tampa Bay, I think they're at this point the consensus number 4 defense for the first 2 games of the season. They're playing kind of inexperienced quarterback. Philip Lindsay's not in the game. Cortland Sutton might have left the game again. I'm not sure, but he's been banged up. I like this. He's owned. Tampa Bay's only owned in 43.4% of the leagues. Now, number 2, you have the Arizona Cardinals. Their defense is much improved. I thought they added the best, most impactful defensive player in the draft. Well, I guess Chase Young is probably. I've been saying that a lot. Chase Young, I think, is the best defensive player in the draft. But for Arizona to add Simmons, that's exactly what this defense needed. And they're good. Now, they've had a pretty good run to start the year. They got to play San Francisco. Yeah, great running team, but the receivers were hurt. Then you play Washington. You got Dwayne Haskins at quarterback. Arizona next week is playing Detroit. Detroit can pass the ball. Detroit can run the ball. So that'll be their test, but they're a team that you can bet on at this point. Washington, they can sack the quarterback. I thought they were overmatched with Arizona and what Kyler Murray can do for them. But them playing Cleveland, it's not like Baker Mayfield's going to be running around like a water bug, in between the defensive players. It's like Tecmo watching that guy run. Washington's not going to have to deal with that with Baker Mayfield. Question to me is we haven't really seen Washington. They played Philadelphia in week 1 without Miles Sanders. You played Arizona. They're not really a power running team. Cleveland's going to try to run the ball through the front of that defense and tire that defensive line down. I'm curious to see how that works, right? I'm kind of a bettor, and then obviously we got the Fantasy Football Daily Fantasy stuff, but I'm curious as a spectator to see how the Washington football team's defensive line will hold up to the pounding of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt coming down the line, because I don't think this is a game where Washington's going to come out to a big lead. If anything, it's more likely that Cleveland comes out to the lead, which means they lean on that run game a little bit more. How it's really the fitness. How good a shape is this defensive lineman? I know they're pretty deep, and I know they have a ton of talent on the defensive line. So again, as a spectator, this is a very interesting test for a very talented Washington football team defensive line. Washington, by the way, is only owned in 12% of fantasy leagues. Tennessee, 28.8% owned. They need to be higher than that. Come on, everybody. They play Minnesota next week. We saw Minnesota struggle against Indianapolis. Minnesota's offense, they haven't looked as good. It's going to come around. I'm not worried, Vikings fans. I'm not worried about Minnesota at all, but it is noteworthy that they haven't really looked sharp and cohesive yet. I think the loss of Stephon Diggs is bigger than people might have realized. It's not like Jefferson was really coming. And look at what Diggs is doing in Buffalo, and look at Josh Allen's numbers. I mean, that second wide receiver, I think probably everybody's a little surprised at how impactful that loss was. But you look at the target totals, like B.C. Johnson, Jefferson, they're not getting any at this point. Tight ends are a little bit down. I know Kubiak wants to involve Rudolph and involve Irv Smith. That's not really happening, which means people are tightening up because they're not making him pay deeper and in the secondary, so they're tightening up and kind of trying to stop Dalvin Cook. You cannot contain this team is too talented. You can't contain them season long, but they're struggling right now. And I like Tennessee. I like Tennessee, the organization. I think they're well coached and they're smart. They play well. They're disciplined. They can sack the quarterback and they get turnovers. So I like Tennessee this week as well. Number 5, Green Bay. I believe they're also a consensus top 10 defense through the first 2 weeks of the season. Only owned in 4.7% of the league, so there's an over 95% chance that they'll be available. And then lastly, I'm giving you a bonus selection here. Seattle, the Seattle Seahawks defense, 33.3% owned. The only thing I don't like, and the reason I don't have them in the top 5 is I like them season long, but they're playing a Dallas Cowboys team that has looked sharp now 2 weeks in a row. Outside of the first quarter of the Falcons game today where they turned the ball over 3 times. They can pass the ball. The tight end's better than I thought. 3 deep at wide receiver, very good wide receivers in Gallup, Cooper, and CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, you got Ezekiel Elliott running the ball, but even his backup and Tony Pollard's pretty damn good. Dak Prescott is good. Now, I think Seattle probably wins the game. Don't get me wrong. but this could be a higher scoring game, and it could be one of these kind of games where Seattle doesn't get a ton of turnovers, but we'll see. By the way, it's funny that Atlanta got 3 turnovers and they couldn't find themselves into the top 10 of the defense. Man, things are going bad for Atlanta. That stinks. But there you go. There's a full episode. Reminder to the people picking this up, we got quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends all in different episodes. So check the full Week 3 playlist. Once again, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know who got you in the nuts. Let me know who you think your top waiver play is for this week as well. I'd like to hear that. Comment below, and we'll be interactive. Now, for our live stream, let's see here. Oh, yeah, Buffalo. Tree Hopper, yeah, man, Buffalo. Whew, that's bad. But they'll be fine. Every defense is probably going to have 1 or 2 weeks where they're not going to be, that elite, right? Let's see here. And I think that's it. I think that's all for the comments. Got you, Tree Hopper. I appreciate you kind of staying tuned and being interactive as well. Everybody, please like, comment, subscribe. Once again, we do lives throughout the week. We break out every single game. We put our own fantasy football projections out there. We're not just regurgitating rankings from like Fantasy Pros. Respect to Fantasy Pros. I like them. But we're not just regurgitating rankings. We actually put our own projections out there. You can sign up for the rankings and the playlist and all that stuff. Appreciate the time. Everybody have a great week. We'll be back with some advice as well. Talk to you then.